Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. My name's Jerry, and I'm the maintenance chief at Meadowbrook Assisted Living. It's a cozy apartment complex reserved for retirees. We offer 3 daily meals, housekeeping, activities, transportation services, and other perks to make their golden years more comfortable. Meadowbrook is a family-run business, and we're encouraged to refer our own relatives for jobs. Our employee handbook has just one rule: ensure resident safety, happiness, and longevity. I take my duties seriously and strive to go the extra mile for our residents. During the day, most of them either tune into the radio, work on crosswords, or often watch their favorite TV shows. We don't provide television service, so residents have to arrange that themselves if they want it. Over the past couple of years, there's been a frustrating trend of TVs not working in countless apartments, leaving the residents pretty upset. Whenever I get a work order for a faulty TV, I investigate. If the cable's intact, everything's plugged in properly, and there's no obstruction to the satellite signal, it's likely a software glitch. In those cases, I temporarily set up an antenna until their regular service gets fixed. I call the company, a technician comes out, resolves the issue, and usually within a couple of hours it stops working again. It's a never-ending cycle of disgruntled residents. Over the span of 2 years, I spoke with numerous supervisors and requested someone to come and systematically address each problem across the entire property. They weren't keen on that idea. Instead, they wanted me to have each resident individually call them. This was nearly impossible. Many residents have difficulty hearing and discussing complex matters over the phone, let alone recalling 4-digit codes and secret questions. One resident, Mrs. Wilkins, went without service for over 60 days. I demanded they refund or discount her properly. They ended up giving her a measly $21 off, which wasn't even half of a single month's payment. When I spoke to that particular representative and said the discount wasn't enough, they smugly told me, "Well, go ahead and throw our dishes in the dumpster then." That was just the tip of the iceberg. These companies have caused significant property damage. They've run coaxial cables through gutters and downspouts, draped cables across sidewalks creating tripping hazards, installed dishes in the middle of courtyards wherever convenient, and strung out cables across the grass for hundreds of feet without bothering to bury them. I've discussed these issues with Meadowbrook's owner repeatedly over the past 2 years. The last time we spoke, he gave me the green light to handle the situation and do whatever was necessary to fix it. My options were limited, and the only feasible solution I could devise was switching to a landline company that didn't require satellite dishes. Well, I've officially finished running new coax to every single apartment, and a landline company has installed boxes and services in each residence unit. Residents who previously paid monthly fees for TV now get their service for free, and those who never had it before now do. We've saved over 50 residents money every month, and in total, over 200 now have television included in their rent without any increase whatsoever. This was my revenge for that rude representative's treatment of sweet Mrs. Wilkins. I couldn't be happier for my residents. Mrs. Parker chuckled. Well, isn't that a doozy of a story, Jerry? Those satellite folks sure had it coming. You got that right, Mrs. Parker, Jerry replied with a grin. No one messes with my Meadowbrook family and gets away with it. The next one is an entitled people story. When I first moved into my new house, I was excited to join what seemed like a friendly neighborhood. Nestled in the suburbs, it was the kind of place where kids played in the streets and neighbors waved hello. That wholesome vibe is what drew my wife and I there in the first place. But we quickly learned that beneath the surface, there was a dark underbelly to this community, and the source of the rot was none other than the Homeowners Association board members and their power-hungry lawyers. It started innocently enough. I received a letter in the mail from the HOA welcoming me to the neighborhood. It contained all sorts of documents, including an application form to join the association. Membership wasn't mandatory, but they encouraged it. I figured why not? Might as well make some new neighborhood pals. But soon after submitting my application, I got a call from Tom, the HOA president. He informed me that while my application was received, I needed to provide further documentation proving I was the sole owner of the property. Apparently there was some discrepancy in the county records. This immediately raised alarm bells. I knew for a fact there were no issues with my ownership documents. I asked Tom to provide evidence of this supposed discrepancy, but he mysteriously avoided the question. That's when I realized this wasn't just a friendly welcome call. They were trying to sniff out some weakness in my claim to the property, and I had a sneaking suspicion why. With some digging, I uncovered the truth. The HOA had a long, messy history of taking ownership of vacant properties under dubious circumstances. Whenever a house stood empty, they'd conveniently find a loophole to seize control of the land. My house had sat vacant for a year before I moved in. Clearly, the vultures were circling, hoping to make it their next victim. Well, they picked the wrong guy to mess with. I wasted no time lawyering up and sent a strongly worded letter to Tom and his fellow board members. I outlined exactly why their request for further documents was bogus and unnecessary, and I made it abundantly clear that they had zero legal rights to my property. That should have been the end of it, but these guys didn't know when to quit. The HOA lawyers responded with an equally aggressive letter claiming I had missed HOA payments and owed them for various code violations. Again, these were baseless accusations, as I had never agreed to join the HOA or pay any dues. Things were escalating, so my lawyer advised we take decisive action. It was time to hit them where it really hurt their wallets. We filed a lawsuit against the HOA board and their predatory law firm, slapping them with hefty charges for harassment, extortion, and attempted property fraud. The day I showed up in court across from Tom and his cronies was one of the most satisfying of my life. Their arrogance faded as the judge described their unlawful conduct. Turns out my lawsuit wasn't the first time these guys had been accused of shady practices. Their lawyers tried every trick to paint me as the antagonist, but the evidence against them was rock solid. In the end, the judge dealt a crushing blow. Not only did I win damages to cover my legal costs, but the court dissolved the entire HOA board, banning those specific members from ever holding power again. Their law firm also got slapped with sanctions. Just like that, the reign of terror was over. On my way out, I locked eyes with Tom. The defeat was written across his face. He knew they had gambled with the wrong property owner. These days, my neighborhood is making strides to repair the damage left by the corrupted HOA board. Many of my neighbors have reached out with thanks, as they too were victims of the board's schemes. As for me, I take great pride driving home every day, past the empty HOA office building. The true landowners have restored justice. The next one is a petty revenge story. This happened about 10 years ago. I was at home, and my cat was being a little crazy, as cats do. My sister saw my cat scratching on the carpet and made a snarky comment to my mom, who I was living with at the time, that I should get rid of that stupid idiot of a cat and get her put down, and started laughing. I, of course, react not so nicely, and she asks me why I am being an idiot. My sister is a chronic crap stirrer, so she made me upset, and I left for an event I had to go to. A few hours later, I get a call and I answer. It was a police officer. I thought the worst and asked what was going on. It turns out my dad was at a bar and I guess he got a little too tipsy. They said he was lying down next to the building and pooped himself. I, of course, am pretty close to said bar, but my sister was too. I told the police officer on the phone that I was at an event and was not available and to call my sister. I gave him my sister's number and put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I checked my phone an hour later and had 5 missed calls, as well as a bunch of texts from her saying that she got a call from the officer and that Dad needed to be picked up immediately before they took him to the police station. It turns out she went to pick him up, and his pants were worse than the officer said. She had to clean him up quite a bit before taking him back home. I had voicemails cussing me out about how she had to pick him up and clean him. I called her back later and asked how it went. She was angry and asked why I couldn't do it. I tell her, sorry, I was too busy putting my stupid idiot of a cat down. And hang up. No, my cat was not put down, and she for sure got the message to not mess with me again. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I have a second to senior position in my department at work, so theoretically I have my choice of station to go to when I come in as long as my senior doesn't want it. My senior coworker has a station she always goes to, and it's understood that she likes the 3rd station and I like 7th station. Our stations are even denoted by personal items and magnets. My station is preferred because I have medical issues with overheating and the floor fan points at that location. My personal items at that station include a backup fan, in case the big one just isn't enough. Now this fan is way quieter than the big fan. The new manager complains about the noise of the big one. I have poor hearing and it doesn't bug me. Recently, the new manager has started stealing my station because the fan in it is quieter when everyone knows there's a preference. Whatever, it's the least awful thing she's done, so it doesn't matter much to me as long as I'm not there to need the station. Where she crosses the line is stealing my station right at the start of my shift. I ask her if I could have my station since there are plenty of open stations. She says, no, you need to be able to work at any station. Knowing that I have an agreement with the office that I can always have the floor fan on if I need it, I start to get some ideas and question, so I can have my personal fan for my things first, right? She quickly gives me that awful manager who thinks they're God face. No. Go to your station now and start typing or I'll write you up for not starting on time. I comply like the peaceful worker drone I am and click on the big fan while going to the station right next to her. At this point I'm already sweating, but I'm close enough to the fan that I won't pass out. Just then she clicks the fan off. I sluggishly click it back on. It goes off and on for a whole hour, but at this point I'm seeing spots, so I give her a heads up. The office says the fan stays on if I need it on. She goes to click it right back on. I don't care, this thing is too loud, I'm almost office staff anyways, and things will change around here soon. Within the next 2 hours, I'm unresponsive due to heat sickness. At this point, I've been magically placed in a medical unit for a few hours. I don't know how I got here or who called, but my girlfriend brought my things from work, but all she got out of the managers was that I'm dismissed for a few days. All I know right now is that the new manager has a paradigm report to worry about, and I hopefully get my spot for now on. The next one is an entitled People Story. After selling my motorhome and SUV, I had the cash to buy our next car outright, and that's what I intended to do. I go find the car I wanted and go to the dealership to buy it. Test drive is great, car is great, I'm ready to get the deal done. First, I'm given the final price sheet with a $1,500 warranty I neither asked for nor was asked about. I tell him to take it off. I have to go through his sales pitch and fighting me on it. I win. I'm not getting their extra warranty when the car is still under the manufacturer's warranty anyway. Next, he gives me a form to get my details for a credit check. I tell him I'm not financing. He leans back with a big sigh like I'm being difficult. I ignore him. Do you want me to write a check and wait for it to clear to pick up the car, or do I need to get a cashier's check right now before the bank closes? He gets up and leaves. Great. 15 minutes pass. 30 minutes. I'm getting angry. He comes back with a manager and they both try to get me to finance. This is how you build credit. I already have a great credit score. You don't want to tie up this money. He tries to ask me some personal questions to make me scared to spend the money. Do you own a house? Do you have family who relies on you? I'm not playing this game. I have an emergency fund. I just want to buy the car. Personal check or cashiers? They leave. I'm made to wait again. I get this is their sunk cost fallacy scheme. The more time I waste trying to this done, the more likely I'll be to see it through, but I'm fed up. I get up to leave and he catches me on the way out. Are we doing this or what? I say. He's apologetic and lures me back to the negotiating room. Then he acts like I just killed his dog and says he lost the warranty money and now he's going to lose the financing money. I like you. I really do, but I've got to feed my kids like everyone else. Can you just work with me? The amount they give us for sales like this isn't even worth my time. It's ridiculous. I literally had to get up to leave again before he would finally take the check. I really should have walked out. Can you imagine being made to feel like an a-hole when you're buying a whole damn car? The next one is an entitled parent story. I, 29F, have an older stepbrother, Chris, 42M, who has been a nightmare since the day my mom married his dad. Let me give a bit of background. Our parents married when I was 4 and he was 17. Both our parents were widowed. After their wedding, we moved to the U.S. since my mom had American citizenship through marriage. I was born in the U.S. too, but after my dad died when I was 1, my mom and I moved back to Colombia. Stepdad got his residency through marriage and my stepbrother because he was a minor. My stepbrother wasn't a big fan of me. My only memories of him are just constant bullying. He would be left in charge of me since he was studying locally and lived with my parents, but mostly his babysitting really meant things like locking me in the guest bathroom or the shed outside. He would steal my lunchbox whenever he was the one who dropped me off at school. He even began to harm my pets. I have an old cat that has been with me for almost 22 years. He tried more than once to run her over with his car. My parents never believed any of it. He's the classic golden child. My mom absolutely wanted a son instead of a daughter, so my stepbrother took priority over me. The bullying just kept getting worse and creepier. He had this long key for the bathroom. The door was designed in case it got locked by accident. One could open them by inserting a long stick or key through a small hole on the outside. He would use it to walk in on me showering. My underwear would disappear sometimes, and I know for a fact it was him. He also started taking pictures of me sleeping. One night I woke up to him taking care of himself next to me while I slept. I yelled, obviously. My parents came over, but he wasn't in trouble. I was for tempting him. I was 14 when this happened. He was 27. No one helped me, and he got bolder until he did something I'm still in therapy for when I was 16. It got to a point where I called my biological half-older brother, Sam, 48M and son of my biological father's first wife, to see if I could live with him and his wife, Sandy, during my last 2 years of high school. When Sam found out what was going on, he confronted my mom. My mom didn't care and just told him to take me so long he never asked her for money. Done and done. My brother and his wife became my legal guardians and took me in with my cat and the old family dog since I didn't trust leaving any living creature with Chris around. My parents never checked on me. My extended family from my father's side knew what happened and they immediately got together to ensure I could finish school well and go to college. I don't know my maternal family at all. Thanks to my paternal family, including Sam's mother and her family, I got my bachelor's and master's, no student debt, and work as a nurse practitioner. I still live with Sam, his wife, and their 2 kids, and I pay a small rent. Neither Sam nor his wife expected me to pay anything, but that's the least I can do for the two people who have taken care of me for 13 years. For anyone wondering why I didn't move, it's incredibly expensive where I live, and Sam insisted I stay with them until I save enough to buy my own home. Things seemed okay until my mom messaged me recently. She had not messaged me since I was 18 when she told me she no longer had any responsibility to me. In this message, she sounded overly friendly, telling me how she missed me and asking how I was doing. I was a bit creeped out, but decided to be nice, telling her about what I had done since leaving her care. She seemed very interested, since apparently she knew I was a nurse, but not what kind I was. She began asking me about my salary. I didn't tell her anything about it, but that it was enough to pay the bills. My mom then began texting about Chris and how he was barely making any money due to his student debt. Apparently, Chris never finished a degree, jumping from career to career. He is now working in my stepdad's used cars business as a salesman, but most of his pay went to pay the substantial student debt he got over the year. I told my mom how sorry I was that Chris was having a hard time and wished him luck. That's when my mom finally got to what she wanted. She texted me I needed to pay his student debt so he could finally begin to make the money he deserves like the man of the family. I just turned off my phone. When I got home, Sam was surprised since I was usually the last to arrive. Sandy wasn't home yet. I told Sam what happened and showed him my mom's text messages. I don't think I've seen Sam this angry ever. He told me to block my mom, stepdad, and Chris if I had not done so yet. After talking with Sam and Sandy, I called my boss to ask the next day and the one after off. This gave me a 4-day weekend, including the days I'm normally off shift. My boss was more than okay with this and told me to just take it easy and let her know if she could help. This backfired because the next day, my mom and Chris decided to come to Sam's house to speak to me. I was alone since Sam and Sandy were at work, and the kids were at school. I immediately called Sam and told him what was going on. He told me not to open the door and that he was on his way. My mom spent the whole time screaming that I owed them for raising me and that my sweet brother deserved the money. Chris was going around trying to find a window or door unlocked. There wasn't any since the windows have safety bars, and the only other door is in the closed garage and one in the yard. The yard one was locked, and just in case I locked the one in the garage. I won't post what he called me when he saw me from one of the windows, but basically he pretty much told me they should have thrown me away when I was a baby since I grew to be a bee. He pounded in one of the windows so hard he actually cracked the glass. Eventually he gave up and went back to the front door, clearly trying to kick it down. I didn't have anything to worry about. The door was a security door, but I was still very scared. Between yelling, threatening, pleading, and insults, I finally heard Sam screaming to them to get lost. I only saw things from the window. Sam pretty much dragged them both off the porch. They got to a point I couldn't hear, but I saw my mom and Chris pale and look scared before they pretty much ran to their car and drove off way past the legal speed limit. Sam came in a bit after and immediately went full overprotective brother mode, asking me if I was okay. He kept saying sorry and hugging me. Sandy arrived almost immediately after, and she looked like she was about to commit a felony. Apparently, Sam threatened him with filing charges for what he did to me when I was 16. My brother's ace. My stepdad was willing to testify against his own son. That seemed enough to get Chris off our backs, but not my mom. Since then, it's been 3 days, and my mom has sent texts, called non-stop with various numbers, and rallied a group of people who are supposedly my maternal family to harass me for money. She claims that money should legally be hers since she's my mother, that it's my late father's missed child support. Sam is helping me find a lawyer to get a restraining order on my mom, and I plan to take my stepdad's offer to testify by pressing charges against Chris. I can't say I can forgive him for not stopping his son, but I appreciate he's at least trying. I don't know the details, but Chris did something to a relative of his dad, and since then they had a really bad fallout. I took my boss's offer and will be on vacation for a few more days, but here it is. My vacation days are getting eaten up, and my therapist might need a therapist after. Thankfully, my dark sense of humor and supportive paternal family are keeping me somewhat sane. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.